give you a quick update. I've got 855 of you who have subscribed, so I really appreciate that, guys. And the good news is you can see from my last three videos, I've been getting 825, 1340, and 832. This means that we are almost getting 100%, or maybe we are getting more than 100%, basically. So 855 subscribers, and obviously with the views. So it's a very 100% win rate we are getting. And we're already winning, guys. We're already winning. And this is the stuff that YouTube really likes, and this is why I wanted to start a new channel because we've got about 30,000 subscribers. And I've not been active over the last few years, mainly because, you know why, guys? I've been attacked left, right, and center by the government and other forces. So I haven't been able to do videos regularly. So now I've started doing videos again. So I want to hopefully try and get back to where I was. And the best way to do that is to start a new channel and start fresh. And you can see already we are already gaining the benefit, and we are getting 100% response, and we can only grow stronger and stronger from here. So we've got really good base, really good foundation, and it's only up from here, guys. So I really appreciate you guys joining, and if you haven't joined yet, please do so. It will really help. Anyway, let's get back to the show. So it's been interesting few days, guys, and I think we had a little bit of a rest with this ceasefire in Iran. However, I think this ceasefire is about to break for many reasons, really. So number one, you can see Trump's language that he's using. He says, "Clock is ticking. They better get moving fast, or there won't be anything left of them. Time is of the essence." So why is he talking in this kind of language? The clock is ticking. He knows something that we don't, and I believe that he went to China to try and get Chinese support in opening up the Strait of Hormuz, opening up the blockage, and also to basically stop China from providing arms and intelligence to Iran, and also for China to provide Iran with pressure to basically surrender to the American terms. Obviously, China did not agree to any of that. So President Trump came back empty-handed, and I believe he used the Taiwan card against China as well. Maybe not in front of the press, but I think behind the scenes when they talk in private, he probably said something along the lines of, "If you provide weapons to Iran, we will give weapons to Taiwan." And the Chinese probably thought, they're probably just, not very happy about it. And China was like, "All right, if that's the game you want to play, then let's play." So it's almost like gangster style diplomacy, guys. And this is the only way Trump has knows diplomacy. This is his gangster style of diplomacy. This is the only way he knows. And as you can see, like already the stock market is starting to crash. The Bitcoin market starting to crash. I believe there might be a massive crash happening tomorrow when the US market opens. Already, you've been seeing Nvidia crashing, and many other stocks have been crashing over the last few days since Friday. So I think things are not looking good for the markets at all, and I think they are starting to see um, that things are not going well along this ceasefire front, and things can easily start up again. So there's been some interesting other developments happening in Israel, particularly. So Israel has been burning today. One of their facilities, uh, I think it was some sort of factory, and some people say that it was a factory to produce Arrow 2 and Arrow 3 missiles. Other people are saying that this was a factory which produces their nuclear missile. This is why the explosion was so big. And they were testing some nuclear material apparently, and and blew up. The explosion was absolutely massive. It created some sort of mushroom cloud in Israel, and this is why people are wondering whether Iran attacked or whether something happened majorly, or whether it was a accidental nuclear explosion. The Israelis have kept it secret. They said it was a controlled explosion, but obviously nobody believes that. So I think something's happening, guys, behind the scenes. And there's also stories about Iran's airport. So there's some explosions in Iran's airport today. So I don't know if whether it's true or not. I'm just seeing some stories on Twitter. But obviously, I don't trust Twitter. There's so much fake news on Twitter, guys. I really have to be very, very careful what I see on Twitter and what I report. I have to check my sources maybe like 10 times before I kind of make a video about it. But sometimes when the news comes very fast, it's really hard to check all my sources and to verify it. So all we know is there's some explosions happening in Israel, there are some explosions happening in Iran, and the ceasefire is looking very, very weak at the moment, and things can, spiral out of control maybe by next week. Um, I know that Netanyahu is speaking to President Trump today, so they might be planning something as well. And President Trump has got a scheduled news conference tonight as well, and that's happening in a few hours, so he might mention something then. So a lot of things are happening, guys, behind the scenes. But I can tell you one thing: if this Iran war starts again, it's not going to look good for United States or for Israel. It's not going to look good for them at all, because Iran has got a lot more cards it can play that they have not played yet. For example, number one, they can start cutting the undersea cables. And these undersea cables provide network services and internet throughout the world, basically, which goes through the Strait of Hormuz. And so many AI data centers around the regions will have to be shut down because they won't have any access to the world. And cutting those internet cables will cost the industry trillions. We're talking about, because they're going to have to replace those cables, and they cannot go through the Strait of Hormuz again. They're going to have to go around Africa, and that's going to cost them a lot of money, guys. We're talking about trillion here in infrastructure costs alone. So it's not going to look good. Iran can also get Yemen to close the Bab al Mandeb, which is the Red Sea. So no traffic can go through there, and that will block Saudi Arabia and Israel and Egypt, and also all the traffic coming through the Suez Canal. So that could cause major, major headache for the rest of the world. Iran can also start firing at all the other remaining US bases in the region. They can start firing. I believe they will really go hard on UAE this time as well. I think the last time they went very easy on UAE, but I think this time they might hit UAE very, very hard, and things will escalate in the region. So I do not think I do not think doing another round with Iran is very, very wise at all. Um, but at the end of the day, we don't know what Trump is going to do. He really is not a man who thinks critically. He doesn't have a critical thought in his mind at all. He just does whatever the hell he wants. He doesn't think long-term goals. He only does it for his short-term benefits. He doesn't even do it for United States. He does it for whoever speaks to him on his ear. The last person that speaks to him, that's what he does. If it's Miriam Adelson, if she tells him to start a war with Iran, he will do it. She's his biggest donor. So basically, it really depends who has got his ear, and he will basically make decisions based on that. It's not based on logic, it's not based on any intelligence, it's not based on thought process, it's not based on critical thinking, it's just based on his feelings. And this is why Trump is extremely, extremely dangerous. So, guys, also, UAE got attacked today, and it was their nuclear facility. Apparently, 3 drones hit UAE's nuclear facility. I bet nobody realizes that UAE has actually got a nuclear facility. And, they are allowed to have a nuclear facility while Iran are not. So it just shows the double standards, really. So they got hit by 3 UAE drones in UAE, and IAEA is obviously sounding the alarm. Civilian nuclear facilities should not be targeted. Iran is actually rejecting the claims. They said they did not target UAE's nuclear facility. So who's attacking UAE at the moment? A lot of people think it's actually Israel that's doing it. Israel is the king of false flags, by the way. And during the war with Iran, during the 40, 50-day war, a lot of attacks happened in UAE and in Saudi Arabia, which Iran denied. And a lot of people wisely are saying that it's actually Israel that's doing it because they want to get UAE and Saudi Arabia to join the war against Iran. So they're doing a lot of false flags in UAE territory and Saudi Arabia territory, which will force these governments to act and start, joining the American forces and Israeli forces. So this is a perfect scenario for Israel. It's a win-win for Israel if UAE decides to join the war and if Saudi Arabia decides to join the war against Iran. Because this means that, Israel can basically fan the flames from behind the scenes. They don't have to actively be, joining the war. They can just, sit back and watch the fireworks and let the Muslims kill each other. That's the ultimate goal. That's the ultimate dream. And when all Muslims get together and start killing each other in the region, who wins? It's Israel that wins. And Israel can pick up the pieces and create the Greater Israel Project, and nobody can stop them. Because if the Muslims start killing each other, that's the plan. And so it makes sense why Israel could do a lot of these false flags attacks on UAE. And I really hope the UAE is not stupid enough to fall for it. I mean, I believe they could be stupid enough to fall for it because, these guys are puppets. And puppets don't really have rational thought. They don't think for the people. They don't even think for themselves. All they think about is how to please their masters. That's all they care about, and that's why they are puppets. So, guys, the explosions are not just happening in Israel or Iran. They're also happening in Moscow as well. Ukraine has sent hundreds of drones today in Moscow, and it hit apartment buildings. I believe 3 civilians died as well. Could be more. Countless got injured, and looks like things are heating up between Ukraine and Russia. Putin is under a lot of pressure, guys, to escalate things. And when I say escalate things, I'm talking about, I think his patience is running out against NATO, and he could strike NATO bases all across Europe. Why? Because NATO is planning this with Ukraine. They are giving them the intelligence, but they're also giving them the drones. Because Russia has pretty much destroyed all the Ukrainian factories, making weapons. So how does Ukraine make all the weapons? Well, they don't. It's mainly coming from Europe. It's coming from NATO um, bases, but the weapons, drones, and things like that get produced in European factories all across Europe, and they get shipped out to NATO bases, and from those NATO bases they get shipped into Ukraine. And Putin is getting a lot of pressure from Russians, basically, that Putin, Russia needs to do what Iran did, which is take out NATO bases all across Europe. And that would stop the flow of weapons going into Ukraine. However, I think Putin is also very mindful of not escalating this, special. At the moment, it's still a special military operation. And if they start hitting NATO bases, then we are talking about a war with Europe. It won't be a special military operation, it'll be an actual war, and could even escalate to a nuclear war. So I think this is what Putin is afraid of, escalating things to that level. However, he is under a lot of pressure, and I don't blame the Russians giving him all that pressure, because it does sound like from a distance that he has been extremely soft to Ukraine, extremely soft, guys. He could have gone in a lot harder into Ukraine, and he could have started destroying the Ukrainian parliament buildings, where Zelensky's doing all of his uh, meetings and things like that, taking out all the leaderships. They could have been taking out NATO offices and NATO. There are NATO troops in Ukraine training Ukrainian troops. And Russia knows they are. So I really think that Russia should just take Odessa. And I know it's not going to be easy, but if they focus on just taking Odessa, I believe Ukraine would be in a really serious spot, because they would lose access to the Black Sea, and that's half of their GDP would be gone automatically, because they do a lot of trade from the Black Sea, guys. Because Ukraine, once upon a time used to be the breadbasket of Europe, and they used to be trading with the rest of the world. They used to send, countries grain and wheat and all sorts of agricultural products. Because Ukraine has been very blessed having black soil, extremely fertile soil. And they ship out most of their stuff from the Black Sea. So that's like 50% of the economy. And if they take out Odessa, if they stop Ukraine from accessing the Black Sea as well, it will solve a lot of Russian problems, because they don't have to worry about weapons coming in from the Black Sea or from Romania, Moldova, for example, because that will be under lock and key after that. So all they have to worry about is the west of Ukraine. And they can take those sites out, military bases and things like that around that area, train lines, and they can focus on that part of Ukraine. And once Odessa is gone, once they take out 50% of their GDP and business and money, then you will see Europe and America slowly losing interest in Ukraine. And especially BlackRock. BlackRock has invested a lot of money, especially they've invested a lot of money in Odessa, for example, and central parts of Ukraine. Once they know Ukraine has lost Odessa, I think you're going to see a lot of American companies start, you know, getting out of Ukraine. America and Trump will start losing interest, because Ukraine is not financially feasible anymore. And the Europe will also lose interest as well, and they will eventually stop sending money to Ukraine. And after that, Ukraine will be finished. They will just explode because they won't be able to afford all the soldier salaries, costs of having a war with Russia, and all of Ukraine will just collapse. And I think Ukraine will be separated into maybe two or three blocks after that. One block which is going to be next to Poland, one in the center of Ukraine where Kiev is, and one to the east of Kiev where most Ukrainian Russians live, basically, who speak Russians. And they might even join up with Russia, who knows. But yeah, I think Putin. I have a feeling that Putin might be thinking about escalating this battle maybe over the next few weeks. And America is not going to be drawn in, guys, because I think Trump has already decided that Ukraine is very low in his list of priorities. And Article 5 is not going to be called because even if it's called, you know, President Trump is not going to take any action on it. Because his focus right now is Iran, is with Israel. He's obviously with China as well. He needs to, I think, coming back from China, he realizes that he needs to do more, not being drawn into other major wars around the world. If they want to focus on China and compete with China economically and militarily, they cannot be forced into wars, endless wars in other parts of the world. So I think Trump knows that, and I think Trump is not going to get involved. I think it's more likely Trump will leave NATO and let Europeans deal with Russia. I don't think any nukes are going to be used because, end of the day, everybody knows if nukes are used, then it's game over for everyone. I don't think people want to use any nukes, especially the Europeans. I think Europeans love their lives too much, and they don't want to be start using nukes because at the end of the day, guys, there's only one winner when it comes to nukes, and that's Russia because they've got over 6,000 nukes, so they can take out every single city in Europe. So it's not something that Europeans want to do. I think if there is a war with NATO, it'll probably be a conventional war. So yeah, that's the thing with Russia. Let me know what you guys think. I know I have a few Russian listeners in my channel, so let me know what you guys think. Do you think Putin is being a bit soft? Do you think he should escalate things, or do you think he should just be more aggressive, take Odessa, and even people are saying take Kiev as well, and obviously Kharkiv as well. Take Kharkiv. But yeah, let me know, guys. So let's talk about Little Britain today. So there was a march today called the Tommy Robinson March. And this was the turnout, but it could be more people joined later, but it doesn't really look like a big turnout, basically. If you zoom in, this is the stage. See where the black bit is? That's where the stage is. And these are all the people who turned up. So we're looking at maybe 10, 20,000 maybe from I'm just estimating. And Tom Robinson likes to exaggerate. He says millions. I doubt if it's millions, guys. I doubt it very much. I think it's 10 to 20 million max. I mean, 10 to 20,000 max. So what were they protesting about? Basically, they're protesting about Muslims. They want Muslims out, legal and illegal immigrants. Basically, they want Muslims out. And you can see what they're doing. They're just mocking Muslims. They're making fun out of Muslims. You have three white women here who are dressed like Muslim women, taking off the burqa, throwing it on the floor, treating it like trash. Can you imagine if they did something like that, you know, mocking Judaism, for example? They would be arrested. They would be absolutely arrested. The police would go onto the stage and arrest the women. But because they're doing it against Muslims, I guess the police don't really care that much. And and that's the thing, guys. I think those of you who know Tommy Robinson, he is very much a Zionist, and he is paid by Israel. That's why you see a lot of Israeli flags in a lot of his protests. He's paid handsomely by Elon Musk as well. Um, and also lots of Jewish millionaires are also paying him. This is why he can organize these rallies and marches. And he's paid handsomely by these Jewish billionaires, millionaires as well. Mainly because he serves a purpose, right? But he's blaming Britain's economic problems on the Muslims when everybody knows it's got nothing to do with Muslims. You know, there's hardly any Muslim MPs who are, pushing for any legislation or laws or Sharia laws, and there's hardly any, Muslim laws out there, and and all the economic problems that Britain has had over the years, it's got nothing to do with Muslims, guys. It's all their own fault. You know, all these economic policies with printing money and, you know, all these shenanigans they did with COVID, also with Brexit, also with their disastrous foreign policy, also with giving money to Ukraine, also, wasting so much money on useless things on the NHS and destroying their manufacturing sector, selling off their biggest assets to private companies. You know, Britain's made a lot of mistakes over the years, a lot of mistakes. And I can tell you it's nothing to do with Muslims at all. And it's nothing to do with immigrants. The reason billionaires are paying people like Tommy Robinson to organize these marches is because they want people to be distracted. They want people to blame somebody for their economic problems. And immigrants are the easy targets. So they are, basically, it's like the Roman times when the Romans used to create these gladiatorial games to keep people distracted from the economic problems. This is what they're doing now in Britain. They are basically doing these mass rallies, demonstration and protests against Muslims, blaming the Muslims, blaming the immigrants when they had nothing to do with the British economic problems. If you need to blame someone, blame the government. Also, you can blame the billionaires. Billionaires have become 10 times richer than they were 10 years ago. They are making so much money out of British taxpayers' expense. Elon Musk is making a ton of money from Britain. And all these Jewish billionaires who are funding Tommy Robinson, they are making tons of money from Britain. The British bankers are making tons of money from Britain. They're destroying the economy. But they're making the money, but the middle class is the ones that are suffering. But they still want to blame the Muslims. So let me tell you something, guys. You know, like, just like the Roman times when they used to distract the people with gladiatorial games, in Britain, football is like the national sport, and it's like religion to a lot of people. They will go to every single game, they will buy every single shirt that comes out, they will buy, all the merchandise, they will watch all the games, they will talk about it with their friends, they will spend all of their time and effort and money on following their football club. Just like they did in the gladiatorial times, in the Roman times. And what happens to these people? These people are very, they don't have time in their brains to think about anything else. They don't have time to do their own research and discover why Britain is doing so badly, because they are so invested in their football and following their football club and using all of their brain cells into football. They don't have any capacity left for critical thinking or doing any research or reading. They don't do any of that. And this is why so many people in Britain are such low IQ. They fall for these football games. They fall for British media tabloids, which are very, very low IQ, by the way. Some of these journalists, they put out any source of crap and people just believe it. They watch these daytime shows on television, which are complete brain rot. None of it's educational. It's just brain rot. It's just daytime trash TV. You learn nothing watching them. They watch soaps and all these reality shows, which again does nothing for you except destroy your brain. A lot of them take drugs or are on antidepressants because of all the problems they're having in the world. So they're on like heavy medication, or they're doing recreational drugs, or they're taking antidepressants. You name it. Britain has got the highest rate of mental health, disorders in Europe. So many people are out of work in Britain because they have mental health issues. And then you got and then you got social media as well, brainwashing them as well. Most people are just watching TikTok, watching girls dance and shaking their booty instead of doing actual research and reading and going onto YouTube and listening to, important channels and learning about geopolitics. They don't do any of that. They rather watch TikTok videos of girls dancing and shaking their booty, and they spend all their time just searching for that. Absolute brain rot, guys, brain rot. So this is why you have these marches just full of low IQ people in Britain. If they did actual research, they would know that Muslims are actually very, very successful in UK. Some of the best football players that they support are Muslim. Like, there's a guy who plays for Liverpool. He's from Egypt, and he's Muslim. I think I think his name. I don't follow Liverpool guys, but I know there's a famous Muslim player in Liverpool. He's like world famous. Sahar, maybe? No, no, it's not Sahar. He begins with S anyway, and he's from Egypt, and he's Muslim, and he used to play during Ramadan. He used to be He used to be fasting and playing as well. So he's a real, practicing Muslim. You have most of the doctors in UK in the NHS are Muslim. Most nurses are Muslim. Muslims are the most educated. If you look at the GCSE A-level results, you see Muslims are, at the top of the list when it comes to getting good grades. And also, a lot of them end up getting good jobs. And, they're very, very successful in UK. They produce a lot of businesses. There's a lot of Indian restaurants, Bengali restaurants. They actually bring a lot of money to the economy in Great Britain. They don't think of that, do they? They just want all the immigrants out, basically. These are the same people who voted for Brexit. They wanted all the immigrants out. Instead, what they did was they voted Brexit and they kicked out all the Europeans. All the Europeans that used to come to UK to work in UK, they got kicked out because of Brexit. And who replaced them? You had millions of Indians coming in, and then you obviously got millions of refugees coming in from Middle East, but that's because Britain and America and all its allies were bombing, countries like Libya, countries like Syria, like Iraq, Afghanistan. So obviously, there's going to be refugees coming into Europe because you've been blowing their houses up. So yeah, they got somebody to blame. So they rather blame the Muslims, I guess. They are the true enemy of the world, according to them. So let me ask you something. If they do end up kicking out all of the Muslims from the UK, do you think UK will be in a better position? No, because if you look at the immigration stats, most of the immigrants are Indians and they're not Muslims, they're Hindu. 250,000 Indians come to UK every year. That's the highest. That's the highest number of immigrants coming from any country. 250,000 per year, and they've been doing it for over 10 years. So we're talking good few million Indians living here, legally and illegally. So what they're going to do when they kick out the Muslims? There's just going to be more Indians coming in. So there'll be no Muslims left. So what they're going to do? They're going to start blaming the Hindus and the Indians. That's what they do. That's they need somebody to blame all the time. That's the problem. They don't look at themselves. They don't look at the government. They don't look at the billionaires who are pulling the strings. They just want somebody to blame for their own problems. Anyway, guys, that's the end of number one, part one. I'm going to talk about part two. I'm going to be discussing China in a bit more detail, and I'm also going to be discussing about Taiwan. Has Trump sold out Taiwan? Yes or no? He seems to be all his language that he's saying. He seems to have been selling out Taiwan, and I want to also discuss Taiwan's response as well. So we'll be discussing that in part two. So make sure you look out for that, and that's going to be on the new channel. So if you haven't subscribed on the new channel, guys, make sure you do. The link is on the description. And thanks a lot, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care for now.